Everybody, we have some good news about the fourth stimulus checks that you want to know. First of all, Democrats could pass automatic stimulus checks for Americans. And this could mean monthly relief checks for all of us. That's if the unemployment rate drops significantly.
You know, in this country, we should not have many millions of seniors who have no teeth in their mouths or become sick because they cannot adequately digest their food. That is not acceptable. We cannot continue to have God knows how many seniors who are unable to communicate and listen to their grandchildren or their friends because they can't afford the outrageous cost of hearing aids. And people cannot read newspapers because they can't afford eyeglasses. And that is why, as we continue the fight for a Medicare for all single-payer system, at least now, we have got to guarantee that Medicare cover dental care, eyeglasses, and hearing aids.
And progressives in the Senate are campaigning for automatic stimulus checks and additional unemployment benefits. What could be a fourth stimulus bill? In a letter, Biden wrote, "The crisis is far from over, and families deserve certainty that they can put food on the table." So, a fourth stimulus check is definitely necessary, and President Biden, all of our members in Congress, should definitely do what it takes and send out more stimulus payments. Do you guys agree? Tell me in the comments down below if you do.
Compromised. The bill that should have been passed, in my judgment, was a $6 trillion bill. If you take climate change into consideration, that's the kind of money that we need. We've already made a significant compromise.
But would you consider a number less than $3.5 trillion?
No, right. Look, we're talking about numbers. You tell me what we should cut. Tell the working families of this country that we don't need to make child care affordable. Tell the American people and the younger people that we should not address the crisis of climate change and try to save the planet. Tell the homeless people that we should not build affordable housing. Tell the young people that we should not make community colleges tuition-free. All we are trying to do is address the crises facing working families and demand that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. They are fighting back big time. But at the end of the day, I believe we're going to prevail.
Bernie Sanders was just on the Senate floor, and he was blasting Mitch McConnell about the debt ceiling and not raising the debt ceiling. Every few years, the Republicans, Democrats, whoever is in charge, one party doesn't like. One party says they're not going to raise the debt ceiling. The other party says we need to raise the debt ceiling. Right now, the Democrats are in the lead as far as the votes, so they're saying let's raise the debt ceiling. The Republicans are not in the lead. They say let's not raise the debt ceiling. Now, I think the Republicans do have a point here. The Democrats are trying to add another $5 trillion to the debt. There already is $28 trillion on the federal government's debt right now. The monthly payments on that is about, or the interest on that is about $380 billion. It's just absolutely crazy. This is Bernie Sanders recently blasting Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor.
We face. Mr. President, Republican leader Mitch McConnell this morning once again reiterated that the Republican Party will not vote to lift the debt ceiling, and in an extraordinarily irresponsible manner, Republicans have indicated that they will not pay the debts incurred under the Trump administration.
Every president that comes about raises their own spending. In fact, it's not really the president that spends it, it's the Congress. They're the ones that create these bills and they spend it. It's just the president signs it. So if usually what happens is the new president comes in, they always blame the last president. The last president comes in, or the next president comes in, we'll blame the last president. So it's kind of the same kind of game. They do that. So Bernie's talking about the last debts from the last president.
In his statement, as he has done time and time again, Senator McConnell implies that this debt ceiling has something to do with future spending.
Actually, it does, because the Democrats want to add another $5 trillion onto the debt. So that is actually future spending. If they raise the debt ceiling just enough to pay for the last president's spending, then that would make sense.
It does not. Like anyone who owns a credit card, the payments that are made are for past spending. In this case, spending incurred under the Trump administration. And let us be clear. If the United States the largest economy in the world, defaults on its debt, it will plunge not only our country, but the entire global economy into what could become a severe economic depression.
I think the one thing that Democrats miss is that when you print more and more money, because the government's not taking in enough money.
So the Democratic proposal seeks to turn jobless benefits and stimulus checks into automatic payments in the future. That's done by tying them to economic indicators like the unemployment rate. The group of progressives argue that it's unfair for the American people to be left hanging on the whims of warring political factions. The letter also said that families should not be at the mercy of constantly shifting legislative timelines. Families should receive, it's true to everybody, families should receive the stimulus payments as soon as possible. It's definitely necessary. And leaders do not specifically say in a letter how much the automatic direct checks or extended jobless benefits should be. The proposal builds on existing ideas from progressives. That's all done in Congress to authorize recurring stimulus checks. Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, and Ed Markey put forward a proposal that would also send $2,000 per person plus $2,000 per child for up to $10,000 per month. But Ron Wyden has been pushing for a while for additional unemployment benefits to be tied to economic conditions. He's referring to stimulus checks and the extended jobless benefits. The letter said these two forms of payments are effective together, and unemployment insurance has replaced lost income for millions who have lost their jobs of direct payments. And the effectiveness of those two provisions and their popularity among the public are the two reasons why stimulus checks should definitely be sent into law. So far, the Biden administration and Democratic members were optimistic after the House passed their social spending bill and climate package last week. The National Economic Council expressed confidence on that the legislation will pass the upper chamber. The legislation, however, will likely undergo a number of changes in the Senate before a vote is even scheduled. Adjustments are also expected to be made after the Senate parliamentarian completes a review of the legislation in response to opposition from some senators to specific provisions in the bill. But still, the senator recognized the reality that the bill will likely see a number of changes as it makes its way through the chamber, but said that the reasonable people in the caucus can come up with a very good bill. He also emphasized that compromise will be needed to send the package back to President Biden's desk. So one lawmaker, that's Joe Manchin, said he's also against including paid leave in the spending bill. He argued it should be considered outside reconciliation. It is the legislative process the Democrats are using to pass the 50-50 Senate and get the bill done. So I personally believe that President Biden can send out the fourth stimulus checks in time. But we're going to need the agreement from Senator Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema.